Welcome back to another. Wat must we tell you? What must we tell you? I'm going to Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we have another catastrophe on our hands. So, have you ever seen an engine that came in the boot, completely stripped? Everything is sitting in the boot, the back seat, everywhere. This is how this car came to us from Cape Town. But we at least appreciate it that the owner trusted us with the build on his N54 motor. So as you can see, some of the boxes with some of the parts, you'll see there is some of the chain guides, downpipes, some turbos there. At least he took the time and he wrapped it. Here's the sump here, pistons, bolts, and then we had an open 5 liter with a whole lot of other bolts and parts, and oh my word, this is gonna be exciting times. It's gonna be a very good puzzle. We're busy building the motor here. We've already got the block back from the engineers. We gave it a light hone. We gave it a very thin skim on the top just so that the mating surfaces of the head and the block complement each other, in that we have no warpages, no leakages and things like that. And then as with regards to the car, this is how the car came. Absolutely everything just sitting here on the inside. Hopefully if I can open up the inside. So as you can see, that's how the parts came. Everything just lying there in packets, car seats, boxes. We've been trying our best to get some sort of organizational skills here. So you can see there's I think the gearbox is sitting at the back of the car. There's a flywheel, there is a cross member, engine mounts, there's an intake there, there's intakes there, plastic parts, some gasket sets. That's the old crank, I assume. And yeah, there's more parts there. There's an old oil pump, there's the new oil pump over there. So yeah, fun times ahead, but yeah, we'll make it work, we'll make it happen. But again, everything was sitting here on the inside of the car. So the first step to this particular exercise is actually sorting out what's what here. So we have the old head bolts, we have the crank bolts, we have some of the chain guides. We'll inspect it to see if anything was damaged. There we have the crank hub over on that side there. And yeah, oil pickup is sitting there, turbos are sitting there, pistons is sitting there. So Kelvin will lay it out on the floor and we'll see what's going on. So now with everything laid out on here, so this is an entire N54 engine. Obviously we have the new gaskets in it there, but this is an entire N54 engine in this, I would say 2x2 square meters, and we're still busy unpacking parts. So the parts are just coming and coming and coming, and we're busy unpacking. So yeah, at the end of the day, this is gonna be a mission and a half, but we up for the mission. Let's wait till he gets into the car and do the first startup. So we just started with the first process. What we did was we laid the initial bearing down. We used some red line lubrication on each of the journals here. The crank has already been measured, but what we need to measure is we need to measure the bearing clearance on these particular journals. So we'll do that so by putting the bed plate on. So what we'll do is we'll use what's known as a feeler gauge. Let me show you guys what it is. We'll use a feeler gauge and we'll cut small little strips and put them along here, here, and here. And then we'll torque the bed plate block in place. And once it's torqued down, it will give us a thickness. So the thickness will actually sit here. And then you measure the thickness with your feeler gauge to see the exact size or clearance that you have. So you can see it measures in inches. And I think on the other side it's millimeters. Yeah, so on the other side it's millimeters as well. So we'll do that now, measure the journal, measure the bearing clearances. Once we're happy with the clearances, we will then proceed to the next step. But before we continue, this particular channel is important that you prime it with some primer. So we'll do that. We'll prime this area with some primer as well. And once that is primed, we'll put it on top and let it cure. So we place the feeler gauge on and you can see the feeler gauge leaves a mark. Can you guys see that mark? You see there, you can see there, they all look pretty equal. Now what you do is you measure with your feeler gauge just like this here, and you try and find and see what size is the mark generally. So we'll see what size is it.
So it can't be too tight, neither can it be too loose. So once I know that there, we'll continue.
So with the motor nearly assembled, it's now time to torque it down. Kelvin, get your torque wrench, set it to 30 Newton meters. You can see what a jumbled sale this was. Every bolt is put down to see what's missing, what's not missing. Everything from the engine has been laid out and so forth. So yeah, a lot of, it's a big puzzle here. So we'll do the first torque. Right. So after that you mark it off with a straight line so that we can, no, top. Mark the top, no.
Top, yeah.
Yes. Right. Okay. Continue. Then once they're all marked, do the angle of rotation for them. So it's, yeah, so mark them. And then do, so it's 90 on the small ones. Then this one skips 190, then it's 45. Now we torque the crank bolts down 20 Newton meters and then a 70-degree angle of rotation. So let's wait and see how this goes. So with the bottom end almost done, we just short a couple of bolts here we didn't have. Here, Kelvin, here you put the new vacuum gasket, or we still have to put it. So we're busy on the top, finishing up the top with the cams. We'll set the timing. Once the timing is set, once the cam shafts are in, both intake and exhaust, we'll use our cam locking tools, put those on top, lock up the top, put the valve cover on top. Turbos are in as well. Turbos are in. I just, one bolt here, the stud is stripped, so I'll need to get the stud and a bolt for that side there, which is looking pretty decent. And then, yeah, we'll torque the crank bolt once it's in the car. You can see some of the sump nuts that have arrived. Put up the sump nuts in, and everything is looking clean, man. Clean, golden, ready to be making 1000 horsepower. And then, yeah, we'll carry on this side here. Crank sensor is in, high pressure fuel pump, that's about it. That's on here. Oil filter housing can go in next. I'll see if I got the gaskets. I don't know if I got the gaskets for it, but yeah, once that is on, cam timing is on, we'll catch up again. Fitting the accessories onto the motor takes a lot of time, but what we have accomplished so far is basically all of the pulleys has been put on. Pulleys referring to the alternator, the aircon pump, the crank pulley. We still need to crank down the crank bolt. What we are missing on the vacuum pump, that's why the lid is not on. You can see we have one bolt there, but we're missing these two bolts here. So we'll see if we can source these two bolts here, and then we'll be able to put the tensioner back in. High pressure fuel pump is on, fuel rail is in, sump is in. And yeah, so I guess while the car was still in transit, we have some broken clips here. We're gonna have to see how we're gonna make this work. This is one thing we have to do. And the other thing was we had to get a new engine arm brace because the old one cracked here. Whether it was cracked during transport or wherever it was cracked, nonetheless it was cracked, so we had to get a new one here. And yeah, so Kelvin is just busy stripping and putting, well, not stripping, Kelvin is putting all of the turbo pipes in. Once all the turbo pipes are in, we'll be able to fit the motor into the car, put the inlets on. What we've already done on this side here is we've removed the front of the car. I don't know why every car we have, the shocks for the bonnets don't work. Unbelievable. Every car we have. Hey, Kelvin?
Yes,
Every car. Maybe we must keep shocks in stock.
yeah,
Bonnet shocks. Yeah. Okay, so we pretty much disassembled the entire front, and we're about to put the motor in on the inside. The gearbox is ready to be put in. I'll continue with the turbo stuff here, and yeah, Kelvin will carry on from that side. So finally the motor was in. We had a bit of a dilemma, as you saw in the previous clip where we changed the crank on the N54 motor. Now BMW did two things on this N54 engine. One is they went originally from an 8-hole to a 6-hole bolt pattern at the back of the crank. When we changed the crank, this was an 8-hole crank and we initially had a 6-hole, so we had a problem there. But now with all of that in place, the motor then slid in. Now why we did it with the box is because these auto boxes are heavy, so we felt like we'll just slide it in. So we took the front of the car off and it slid in. With that being said, what we have left to do now is to put on all of the auxiliary items, such as all of the pulleys and so forth, as well as the thermostat on this side here. From a boost perspective, the downpipes and the engine mount on that side is now going in. And then on this side here, what we have left is we just have the intake manifold that needs to go in. And you can see the contortionist here, Kelvin, jacking the car up with his legs. Ooh, look at that technique, Kelvin. Look at that technique. Yeah, so anyway, you can see the head is absolutely clean, valves are clean on this side here. So we can start putting the engine harness in. Such items such as the knock sensors can go in. We can plug in the high pressure fuel pump. We can plug in the low pressure fuel pump sensor. We can do as well as the starter. We can put power to the starter because that cable runs across all the way that way to that point there.
And just like that there, she's back on the road and boosting. Yes, N54s are fun cars to drive. So yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but when we stop, I'll take you guys through what all we've done. Still a little bit of work left to do on this one, but pretty pleased as with regards to the actual outcome. But yeah, enjoying it. Turn down here, there's a truck stuck on the top. This is, she's breaking traction. Bit of a slight little misfire I'm getting there, but nothing evidently coming up on the cluster. Ooh, she's quick. She's quick. She's quick. She is quick. Oh, that's it. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that particular test drive. It's been a long journey. Couple of things that is intriguing me on this car is the first thing on this here is the gear selector. Have a look at here. The changing of the gears is very hard. But with that being said, there's a couple of things that could have gone wrong. So when this car came, the gearbox was on the back seat and all the oil spilled on the back seat of the car. And the actual selector linkage, the one that goes to the gearbox, was being dragged along. So as we were pushing the car, as the car was loaded onto the trailer, it might have warped the actual, or taken away the roundness, because it sits in with a dowel and goes in like that there. So what I'll do is I'll maybe just take some sandpaper, clean it down, and maybe see if we can get it to go into gear a little bit better. On cold start, she has a wee noise, a tweet noise. It's coming from the pulley itself, but that's small stuff considering this car came in pieces. But nonetheless, I hope you guys have enjoyed this particular one. She came as a puzzle, she's leaving as a full, she ain't no Mona Lisa. Let's just say she's not a Mona Lisa, but she'll get there eventually. New spray work and things like that there. But till we meet again, guys. Peace.